Welcome to this video, which is all about the wines of central and southern Italy. In Italy, it's estimated that there are between 380 to 500 grape varieties, and there's over 430 appellation regions. So to put that into perspective, if you were trying a new Italian wine each week, it would take you about 20 years to make your way through what they have to offer. So it can be a bit of a minefield when it comes to choosing what to try and what to buy. Hopefully this video will show you that exploring the country through its regions and identifying the key grape varieties of those regions is a good way to explore. Since the end of World War II, Italy has had a real benefit from innovative technology and increase in knowledge, and that's really increased as well the quality of the wines that we're seeing from across the country. We know that there are three main levels of quality, and refer back to Frank's video on Northern Italy for more information on this. So let's get started, looking first of all at Central Italy. Sangiovese plays a key role in putting the centre of Italy on the world map of wine. It's planted widely throughout the region, with its most famous version coming from Chianti. Running the length of the peninsula, the Apennine mountain range dominates the centre of Italy, and the cooling effect of altitude, added to the cooling influence of the ocean, also means that this region can produce really fantastic fresh white wines, with Trebbiano, a very widely planted white grape variety here. So let's start with Tuscany. Lying on the western coast, with the Apennine Mountains to the east, this region can be split into three separate geographical subregions. You have the fertile, flat coastal plains, the hills and the valleys in the south, and in the north, the sprawling region of Chianti. Now, the Sangiovese grape variety is quite late ripening, which means it needs quite a long growing season in order to develop those key characteristics, dried herbs and red cherries, for example. Therefore, it wouldn't ripen successfully in the cooler regions of Piedmont in the north, but here in Tuscany it really thrives. In the lower altitude sites, a bit further south, in Brunello di Montalcino, for example, Sangiovese makes, at a warmer temperature, quite an intense wine. It can be quite full-bodied. Also along this coastal region, we have quite a lot of international grape varieties planted, and it's here where the Super Tuscan was born. Super Tuscan was created by people bending the rules and not adhering to the DOCG appellation system, planting international varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah, and also using small French barriques instead of the traditional large oak casks, to create more of a spice and oak influence on the wine. Although they were not initially welcomed by everybody, the Super Tuscans have now been credited with boosting the profile of Italian wine and acting as a stimulus for the increase in quality and also price of Italian wine on the world market. These days, the wine laws have caught up with the trend. So in Tuscany, in coastal regions like Maremma Toscana and Bulgaria, you can find wines made entirely from international grape varieties such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah and Merlot, without the need to blend in any indigenous Italian varieties. Now, we've already said that Chianti is the most famous expression of the Sangiovese grape, but some people think that Chianti can vary in quality quite dramatically, and I would agree. So there's a few key words that we can look out for on wine labels to help seek out those higher quality versions. Most large volumes of Chianti will be produced under the Chianti DOCG label, with better versions adding in the name of the sub-region, such as Rufina or Colli Senesi. A step up from this, we have the Chianti Classico DOCG. Now, the important thing to note here is that this is not a sub-region contained within the larger region of Chianti, rather a separate region, the original heartland of Chianti. And at a slightly higher altitude, we have a longer growing season, which allows the grapes to develop more characteristics. And in the Classico DOCG, The wines also have to be aged for at least 12 months before they are released. The step up from this, we have Chianti Classico Reserva. Now these wines have to undergo further aging, so 24 months before they are released onto the market. Therefore, they will have developed further characteristics, tertiary flavours. They might become a little bit earthy, the acidity might have softened a little, and you'll get a more complex wine as a result. The final level would be the Gran Selezione, which are Chianti Classico Reserva wines from a single estate. They've actually gone an additional 6 months of aging. So at that top price tag, you're going to expect really, really top quality wine. Now there are so many great varieties and regions to explore that there's bound to be some that we've not heard of. And in the centre of Italy, there are a few regions where we can only really identify them from grapes and wines that are available in the UK. For example, in Umbria, we have the region Orvieto, which makes really zippy fresh wines from the Grechetto and Trebbiano grape varieties, with the better examples having a higher proportion of that Grechetto grape variety. We also have Lazio, with the vineyards lying just to the south of the city of Rome. Here we have the Frascati region, again really fragrant floral, fruit-driven wines that can be sometimes quite aromatic. And then over on the eastern side of the Apennines, we have the Marche region, which is famous for producing quite green herbal wine from Verdicchio. Below Marche is Abruzzo, also on the eastern side of the Apennine mountain range and on the eastern coast. The most famous wine grape from here is Montepulciano, which has put its name to the most famous wine from the region, Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. It creates quite an approachable, easy drinking style and is probably one of Italy's best value red wines. With soft, plummy fruits and juicy red cherries, it can be very crowd-pleasing and is a good one to opt for if you're just having Italian food on a weekday. Also in the Abruzzo region, we have the Pecorino grape variety. So Pecorino is one of the earliest grapes to ripen and therefore became quite nice food for the sheep who like to eat it straight off the vine, hence the name Pecorino. In the south, the climate really hots up. It's quite dry inland and quite humid on the coast. The altitude and the cooling coastal breezes do provide some relief from this intense heat. Agriculture plays a key role in the south, with the wine industry often driving economic growth, especially in regions like Puglia and Sicily. Working southwards, let's start with Campania, a region that has quite a varied landscape. It's mountainous, creating valleys, but it also has a cooler coastal plain, creating a perfect microclimate for stone fruit-driven whites made from the almondy Fiano or the clean, lean Greco. These microclimates are a key thing in Italy. They often host indigenous grape varieties that are yet to be really planted anywhere else in the world, which is why it's such an interesting place to explore. Campania is also home to the Aglianico grape variety. Now this is a very thick-skinned black grape, which really copes well with the heat in the south, but it does mean that once the wines have been made, they are quite high in tannin. So some of the best expressions, although they age very well, at least 10 to 20 years, they often need a cooling down period once they've been made, sometimes as much as 8 years before they're going to be drinking nicely. For example, this Torazzi, which is a DOCG within Campania, and produces quite a floral expression with rose and some sour cherries on the nose, plenty of brooding black fruit on the palate. The Basilicata region is fast becoming one of Italy's most popular up-and-coming regions. It is very mountainous and it produces some fantastic expressions of the Aglianico grape variety as well, especially at the high altitude, flat plains which surround the now extinct Montepulciano volcano. Puglia is the homeland of the Primitivo grape variety, an Italian name for the originally Croatian Zinfandel grape. In the 1990s, it fell victim to the EU vine pool scheme, which aimed to reduce the production of surplus and low-quality wine in the EU. Recently, it has enjoyed a resurgence in popularity, in part in thanks to an increase in technology and the know-how when producing this wine. So rather than being overripe, jammy wines, they now have plenty of structure, texture, with some spice and cloves. You can tell they're from a warm climate, these wines, but they're very enjoyable and a really good alternative to New World wines like Malbec. It's got the same flavour intensity. Another famous grape coming from Puglia is Negroamaro, and is often a perfect blending partner for Primitivo, and we find it in wines such as this Pecorino. Now, don't be put off by the name, which literally translates to dark bitter, as these wines can often be soft, approachable and full of red fruits, especially when young. The name is probably a hint to the way it used to be made, with the wine being left in contact with the grape skins for a very long time to create that dark, bitter effect. And now for one of my favourite wine regions, Sicily. It's host to a vast array of indigenous grape varieties, but its most famous export is probably the Nero grape variety, which is widely planted across the island and produces red wines with medium to full body and plenty of juicy red plums and brooding black cherries. It can often be oak-aged to develop some extra spice and complexity. It gives a lot of New World wines a run for their money, and if you feel like branching out, it might be a good place to start. Some of the best wines from the island come from Etna, a notoriously difficult place to plant vines. You might have to redirect some lava to protect your vineyard area. But there are some sturdy, old vines at quite high altitudes, producing low yields, which, thanks to the lengthened season, the grapes on these vines develop really unique characteristics in those volcanic soils. Look out for grapes like Nerello Mascalese, which is a more earthy, spiced, slightly darker fruited version of Pinot Noir. While some of the grape varieties we've discussed in this video might be unfamiliar to you today, they might play more of a role in the future of the wine industry. As vineyards struggle to successfully ripen grape varieties that they've traditionally planted, they might look towards warmer regions such as the south of Italy for grapes like Fiano, which retains its acidity during the intense heat in the south, and the thick-skinned Aglianico, which doesn't shrivel up in the intense sunshine during the day. Italy offers a never-ending opportunity to expand your wine horizons and develop your taste buds, because there's so many different wine styles to try. But don't get overwhelmed. It is best to tackle the country region by region, identifying key grape varieties like Sangiovese to taste your way through Italy. So enjoy, and as always, if you have any questions, do email us on events@averys.com.